Alright, hey everybody. I'm going to do a quick demo here of how to use Affinity Photo the way we've been using Photoshop, how to get your layers. The interface is different than Photoshop, so I just want to kind of give you a little bit of help if you decide to use Affinity Photo for the remainder of the semester. It's a great app. It's easily a replacement for Photoshop. Right now you can use it for 3 months for free. They've also reduced the Own It Forever price to 25 bucks. If you can swing that, that's a much better deal than being on the hook for Adobe Photoshop for $10 a month for the rest of your life. So I really like it. It's a professional level piece of software, and it will do everything Photoshop will do, and maybe sometimes a little bit more. I'll encourage you to go ahead and download it and try it out. And I'll just give you some just a quick demo of how we would use it for class for the projects we're doing. So you'll open it up, you'll get the opportunity to do a new document or open an existing document. So we'll do a new document. For the next assignment you're working on, I believe I've got the size at letter size. You can pick your type of print, whether it's for print or whether it's for the web or a device, and it'll give you a list of preset sizes. So I think I've got you doing letter size. So you would click letter, and you can work in inches, that's fine. Color format, RGB is what you would want to use for this to start out with. 8.5 by 11, the DPI should be 300 DPI. That's how much resolution you have in your image, which determines how much detail you can have. The higher that is, the more detail you can have. There's a point at which it's overkill, but 300 is a good resolution size for something you're going to print at 100% of the size the document is. So if I were going to print this at 8.5 by 11 inches physically, that would be a great resolution for that. I don't want any margins in this document, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So there's a blank document. Now what I probably want to do is say I've done my drawing, my sketch, pen and ink drawing or whatever. I could open that document up. If I've taken a picture of it and scanned it, I could open that up in Affinity Photo, just like you can in Photoshop. Once I've created this new document, I can open up my photograph or my scan or whatever and bring it in and add it into this document. So I'm going to go ahead and open this document. So let's say this is my image and I've scanned it. Now I want to colorize it. I'm going to go to File, or actually I'm going to go to Select and select all, or Command A on your keyboard, select all. That will select the entire image. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, or Command C. Then up here at the top you can see tabs. So here's a tab for this document. Here's a tab for my document I created. I'll go back to this new document, and then I will go to Edit, Paste. And there's the document, and you can see it's way too big for this document size. So what I want to do is resize it the way you do that. So with the hand tool here, you move the document around. With the selection tool here, or the move tool, in this case is what it's called in Photo, is I can now move that entire image. I can see an outline of the box. So if I grab a corner, it constrains it so it doesn't distort it. So when I want to size it, that's what I want to do, is just grab a corner. I don't want to stretch it or squash it to fit because that distorts the image. I'll advise you not to do the same thing. So that's not really what we want, because that's not the true size of the image. So instead, grab a corner, get it in there, and you can size it, and you'll end up with a crop of some sort. Okay, so what you've done is you've done that. Click off. Let's go ahead and close some of these so I can show you where they're at. Over here on the right hand side, you'll see some tabs. There's the adjustment tab. That's like your brightness and contrast and all that kind of stuff. You're looking for the layer tab. So there's your layer tab you're familiar with. We've got a background layer, which is our image. We want to do our color layer. So down at the bottom, just like in Photoshop, there's this page icon. It's Add Pixel Layer. Click that. We get a new layer on top. And then You see the opacity is 100% normal. These are our modes. So we have darken, multiply, screen. All the ones you've been using in Photoshop are here. So we'll select multiply. And then we can go ahead and grab a paintbrush over here in your toolbar. That paintbrush is right here. So if you click on that, across the top you'll have controls where you can change the size of the brush, the opacity, the hardness, the flow, and some other stuff. So you can change blending modes for their brushes. Just these are all settings you can use for your brush. Over here on the right, you've got your color mixer. It may by default be histogram, so you just click up here and then you get to color. You can click and drag these to pick your color, and here again, just like in Photoshop, the color in the foreground here is the one that's active. So that's the one you'll be painting with. You can pick a color down here. So I do that. There we go. Same effect that we got in Photoshop. Again, the multiply layer is blending that in. Now I've got my brush on a low or like a mixed opacity, so it's 43%, so I'm getting transparency here, which is giving me some nice layering. I've got a textured brush. Okay, and so if you want to access your brush types, rather than just the size, you can go up here to View and go to Studio. This is where you'll find a lot of your palettes. It's like an extra step that Photoshop doesn't have. Just this extra pop-out menu. But in here you can go to Brushes, and here are a bunch of different brushes. What you've got is you've got a pop-up here, so you've got basic brushes, which are just really the round brushes we all know. And then you have some with a soft edge. You have painting brushes, and these are different textured brushes. So you'll see they're each can give you different effects. So this is really nice. It's a good way to kind of build a more painterly work. So by using these brushes, you really get a lot of texture and a lot of variation. So play around with those, and you can get some neat effects. There are lots of different kinds. There's spray paints if you want a more of an airbrushed graffiti look, that kind of thing. But there's more inks that really replicate like drawing with an ink pen, which is, if you've got a tablet, that's a nice thing to do. It's harder to pull off with a mouse, but you can try it and see. You might get some effects you like. But those are all the different brushes that you can access. So you would just exactly the way we've been doing in Photoshop, go around and do your color on a layer. You could do a flat color, and then you could do a layer with just highlights and a layer with shadows. But it's the exact same workflow. It's just things are in a little bit different place. So you may have to hunt around and peck for a little bit to find exactly what it is you want to do. But we've been using that same workflow all semester, and this is exactly why. Because if you're thrown into a situation where you have to use a different painting or photo software, if you know the workflow and the technique, you can use anything as long as they have layers and layer modes, which are these. So you can kind of use that same technique on a lot of different applications. And this is a case where the technique is more important than the software. Now you're learning that if you're using Affinity Photo. Now when you're done, what you want to do is you want to save this out as a JPEG. So you go to File and go to Export. And you get this option across the top of lots of different file types. If you think you're going to want to open it back up in Photoshop, you could save it as a .psd file. That's a Photoshop file and will open up in Photoshop by default. But I want a JPEG from you all, so just click on JPEG. Use best quality. Area is the whole document. And you would export to wherever you're going to save it. With your name, and I believe we're on project 4. And so you export that out, and there you'd have it. So that's how you can use Affinity Photo for class. And I think if you use it for free for 3 months, I think you'll really like it. Again, it's a lot cheaper than paying $10 a month to Adobe to use Photoshop, and it'll do all the same stuff. So I'll encourage you to give it a try, especially if you've lost access to Photoshop. All right, thanks, guys.